Good evening, welcome. Second of Who's in Town series today. Ferran Barenblit'in is with us, and the title is a provisional title. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. That some of you may recall is one of the last few sentences from Blade Runner. For those also addicted to Blade Runner, it's one of the most memorable lines of the film as the dogs fly away. What's his name? Rutger Hauer is fading away to oblivion. And Ferran, I go back together a little while. He was here in 2007 or 8, I believe, to do research, and which ended up with a fantastic project of Ahmet Ögüt in 2009 in Barcelona at the Santa Monica Art Center, which we then brought to Istanbul last year and showed upstairs on the first floor. I forgot the name of the work, but it was the extended Fiat Mia Fiori or Seat. Okay, thank you, Ferran. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the invitation to talk, and especially pressured after being, not only because it's the first time in my life that I will use this, and I hope you will understand me when I talk. Also because talking one day after Simon, it's a challenge because he gave a great talk yesterday. It's true. The title was a working title in the moment that I was invited for this, and I like this title because it refers to the things something that happens a lot in art, things that you see, and you have to explain others, and maybe they will not believe you. But in any case, I want to go step forward at something because then it can define a bit more the talk, and basically suggested that I should focus a lot in one single issue that could be also a point of discussion. So I would like you to talk about this idea of the expanded event that I will describe now. It has this short title of Time in Exhibitions as a Form of Institutional Critique. Basically, maybe the subtitle explains better what I will talk about today. It's when time enters the museum, but in the form of the exhibition and not only the form of the work. Let me start by this simple statement. The history of art in the 20th century could be described as the attempt to create the work that is impossible to exhibit and or to collect. Again, the point of departure is that a good amount of the production, maybe of the second half of the 20th century, or maybe after the 1920s, it's based on generating this tension, generating a work that should be impossible to exhibit and should be impossible to collect. However, the history of curatorial work could be described exactly as the opposite. The attempt to exhibit and collect works that were created to never be exhibited or collected. And in my opinion, a good part of museum work, curatorial work, and artwork of the last at least 50 years is defined by this tension. And if you don't believe me, I just took this photo upstairs and in the exhibition that's here in the first floor, an exhibition that surprised me a lot and I have enjoyed very much. And it's part of the exhibition deals precisely with this idea of how could you make collectible, how could you make able to exhibit things that were created for that, and they have done that by showing these documents. I really like this one. In fact, this shows how a work of art that was created, or maybe not created, maybe you couldn't even call it a work of art. A discussion on the 28th of March 1975 was purchased by John Weber. and it's signed by John Weber and Ian Wilson. And that makes a conversation a work of art, and that this is the only document that shows it. I don't know if there's another document with the conversation itself for the work. No, it's not allowed. So the only document is this document that shows that our conversation. We don't know what do we know what they talk about? They talked about? No, we know nothing more that it was purchased. So this photo that I have just taken with my mobile, I think that it will become quite key to explain what I want to explain. In any case, going back to the idea, I think yes, there's something about the history of curatorial work that we have tried to generate this situation of being able to show what is impossible to be shown, and in the last 15 years, I would say that there's a way of doing so by including time in the works. So I will basically talk after my own experience, and the first and the first of them that I really was involved was this project that I did with an artist based in Barcelona, Martí Manén, that was called Fitzcarraldo, 55 Days Working in the Construction of a Stella 54 Yard. And the work was exactly that. Obviously, there's a reference to the Werner Herzog film, in which, for the conclusion of a dream, a ship has to be brought crossing a mountain. And it's interesting also to know about how the film was shot, and that the film became extremely real, because even the crew that was doing that, they had a very strong fight during the shooting of the film, and eventually the dream was not going to be possible even for the film. But finally, the ship arrives to the other side. And more or less what Martí Manén did in the exhibition was exactly that. This was the first day of the exhibition on December 21st, 2004. And he started working with this little material at the beginning. I should say that he's known as a good craftsman also, very precise in his work. He's an artist that would get calls from other artists asking him for advice on how to do things. He always has a solution. He installs works for other artists also. And for 55 days, the 55 working days between the beginning and the end of the exhibition, he worked constructing the ship. He worked mostly alone. When he needed some help, he had one person from our staff that would help him with heavy stuff. But basically, he did not need a lot of help. And he worked Monday through Fridays. That means a different opening time, working times than the museum. The museum opened Tuesday to Sundays. He worked Mondays to Fridays. So Mondays, nobody could see what he was doing. From Tuesdays to Fridays, public was coming in the museum and visiting the exhibition. And some of them talked to him. The museum, Santa Mònica, was located in an area that it has an old past of sailing people. So some of them, the eldest, would still remember when ships were built. And he did quite well. At the beginning, he had a problem because the material do not arrive during Christmas days. You see on the left the days as they progress and no material arrive. That's him waiting for the material. No news, no news, no news. And finally, new material arrives and he can start working again on mid-January. And he works very well. He does very well. He's very good in his work. He's a very good craftsman. He maybe now you'll see the only moment that he actually needs help, and that's to turn it upside down, because you have to start like this. And this is more or less how it looked in the last days of the exhibition. After the 55 days, he made something that it looked like a ship. In fact, it could have floated on water with maybe a little extra work. But you have to think also that I think the object was very well chosen. The object it was the biggest object that he could build and take outside of the building. There's nothing bigger than a ship. Maybe only an aircraft, but nobody would believe that an aircraft that he then could fly. At least I wouldn't fly it, but I would jump on this. I can swim if it doesn't work. But there's nothing bigger that you could actually take out. Everything was perfect. He was very good, but the public was told from the beginning that the ship was 5 centimeters wider than our widest door. So there was no other option than breaking the work and destroying it in a few hours. So he faced a failure that from the beginning we told the public that all this work was useless, as the rest of the art production that is mostly useless, and nobody was allowed to see when the piece was destroyed. The piece was destroyed on the Monday. I mean, there was a perfect day last Sunday when the exhibition was open, and then on the next Monday when the museum closed, it was not a performance of destroying a ship. It was just destroying it. The expanded event, this notion that I want to deal with, does not exist for itself. It's something that happens when the work of art changes with the time the work remains on view in an exhibition. That's very important. It's not about works that deal with time. It's not about a work that needs it's process based. It's not about performance only. It's about the exhibition as a time frame in which the work could get another dimension. It could make sense to visit the exhibition more than once because the exhibition keeps changing. The same artist, Martí Manén, did something similar when he participated in Santa Fe in the Biennial in New Mexico. In this case, again, there's a reference here for a film. Martí and the Flower Factory was the title of the piece, making a reference to the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As you remember in the film, Charlie, the poor boy that only opens 2 candies, he got the golden ticket to get into the factory, and eventually he gets a prize. In his case, this poor artist from a little town outside of this Mediterranean country gets a golden ticket to go to an international biennial in the United States. And again, he makes a choice of not showing the main venue, where maybe his work was going to be seen by more collectors and by more museum curators and more exposed to what an international biennial could give to him. He chose this lot quite far from everywhere and in the middle of the desert. Remember that Santa Fe is quite dry and there's nothing around it. And he builds this building that is a factory. It's a very long story that it's very difficult to make it short. It's a factory in his hometown. Everything that he does is quite linked to his little hometown outside of Barcelona, Mataró, that was going to be destroyed. And suddenly somebody puts it on a list of protected buildings, and that starts a kind of a drama or a comedy in the city with even demonstrations to keep this building. Here you see it in a scale of 1:25, and he starts following everything that happens with this building, but eventually all the ideas of the mayor of the city are much better than his work as an artist, because he has ideas like moving the building 300 meters because they wanted to build on that side, and all of very creative ideas. Eventually what he does is move on the work many kilometers, many thousands of miles, to the other side of the world in Santa Fe, and they rebuilt the factory, and again with a similar process. And the before of the exhibition, that is when the artist works in his workshop, it's brought to the meantime, to during the exhibition, so public can go see, talk to the artist. And in this case, the work was not destroyed because there was no reason to do so, but it's installed in a place where basically nobody usually sees it. Again, he did very well in the work. He's very talented in that sense, and the work was finished on time, on budget, on scale, and as far as I know, still is there in the middle of the desert. This is a scale for you to understand. There are many other references here to the place where this is, Santa Fe. Well, it's far, but not that far from Las Vegas, where everything is built fake, following a very strange idea of what European architecture is. And in fact, if you go to the back, only these two facades were finished. The other two were left showing what the trick was. And finally, same artist doing something a bit similar, of driving the curators of his project from Barcelona to London, and showing also again the object of that makes possible the work, showing it to the public and making there a space of confrontation of this idea and the time, because the trip was well explained in front of the public as well. Again, with this idea, I want to think that this idea of including time in some works of art follows the logic of institutional critique, because it forces to pose questions to how art works and some assumed normalities that we have for art, like museums show finished works that could be collected, could be exhibited, and could be sold. So some of the works that we are seeing now show that at least this is a way of putting it a bit more difficult. In that case, again, the idea is using this ephemerality, this condition that was of not having sense at the first eyes of the viewer, as to discuss the symbolic and economic power in the art world. Another work that I did in Barcelona with a local artist. It's interesting also that most of the works that I'm going to show you, at least a good number of them, were developed by artists in their hometowns. Sometimes foreign artists did not propose this kind of works. I never asked this to happen. I never asked an artist, please, you should work please include this. In fact, I discovered after seeing that many works needed this idea of time. In this case, Luis Bisbe, an artist from Barcelona, he created this beautiful fountain with the title of Join Us, that at the first side, everything at the first side has a view, and then the second side comes differently. At the first view, it was even quite vulgar fountain, changing colors, like you could see in a hotel lobby. But then you discover that it was linked to the toilets. So you could decide whether you wanted to join or not to the work. So again, the first day the water was clean, the last day it was very dirty. I don't need to tell you the importance of sheet in art. You have to understand it in this long history of sheet in art. That one day I will prepare an exhibition only with sheet. But that's a plan that I have for the day I want to be fired from a museum. The longest of the expanded events, another artist, again, a local artist when I was in Barcelona. She lives in Berlin, She closed these 2 containers for 10 years. That was in 2004, and she closed them for 10 years. So it's now only 1 year and a half away. We don't know what's inside. We know that inside of one of them things will get better. Inside the other things will get worse, and we'll see what happens. Maybe the main question 10 years ago for an artist that was around 30 or 32 or 34 years old, what was going to be of her life in 10 years? I mean, will this become a real event for the art world and people will attend to it, or it will only interest a few? The work of Netko Solakov. He, during his work, I don't know if he has ever shown here in Istanbul, in the Biennial, I guess, yeah? Okay. This is maybe his best-known expanded event that during the 6 months of the Venice Biennial 2001 lasted. It was called A Life in Black and White, and it's exactly what you're seeing. These 2 painters painting walls, one black, the other white, and following each other during months. For my surprise, this work was purchased by the Walker Art Center. So it's in their collection, and which again it goes back to the idea that these works can be purchased. No, sorry, the Chicago Museum.
MMK Frankfurt. Udo Kittelman bought it. Udo bought it. Or Udo bought it. Yeah.
For which museum? For
MMK Frankfurt.
Okay, but so there may be editions because they have one in Chicago. In 5. Again, since I'm talking about a project that I've been involved, when working with him, it was not much after this project happened. I should explain you how the project was. He came to Barcelona to research, and after being some days in the city and looking at the city, it was a very good moment in the city some 12 years ago. The city was booming everywhere. It was the years that the city got really well known globally, and it had a lot of symbolic presence everywhere. So he came and he said, Ferran, I want to work with the other great Bulgarian citizen in the world, which is Hristo Stoichkov. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was extremely famous at the moment. A guy that has a very high consideration of himself, as you can see. And it was his last year playing for Football Club Barcelona. And he said, Netko told me, okay, I want to work with him. Okay, what kind of project? He was not sure at the moment, but he said something like, okay, it's about, maybe it was going to be called something like, how to help Mr. Stoichkov to create a conceptual work of art to support his own country. So the work was going to be more or less him, Stoichkov, with the soccer ball and some bags of painting with the colors of the Bulgarian flag, and maybe he was going to paint or do an expressionist work in the walls with that paint. It was not very clear at the moment. So everything was perfect. Great project. The only difficulty was getting his interest, of course. I started, in those cases is when I make many mistakes and I say to artists, okay, I'll take care of this. I'll follow it. So I did. It was not easy for me to get the phone. Obviously, in the club, they didn't want to help at all. They just, they even hang the phone. So I started to talk to a friend, who happens to have a friend, and finally, I talked to his manager. And his manager thought that I was an absolute freak. So he said, okay, let's do something. You call Hristo, actually. And he told me the number. And the number was very easy, because it's a number only made with his number in the... so I could have imagined that. Well, I would have said like 8 weeks. Okay, so when you call this kind of people, you know that you have only 90 seconds. If in 90 seconds you can get to your point, they will not listen to you, the rest. And for my surprise, he said yes. He said, okay, if it's helping a Bulgarian, it's fine for me. So I was so happy. He was going to be in Sofia the next week. And so I emailed Netco and told him, we got him. After all this time, all this chase, we got him. And he gave me his Bulgarian phone number, and they could have a coffee. He could explain, Netco could explain directly. I know that Netco could explain much better everything to him, because there was obviously something very important of being of the same nationality. And Netco never called him. He said he changed his mind, and it's true that something happened. He was appointed to coach of the Bulgarian national selection, which I think it was kind of a disaster for the selection, and but that happened later. And he never called. At the point I felt deceived, because I was the curator of the show, but I was also the director of the venue where it was going to be shown, and as you may imagine, this is really popular. It's very tempting to be present in the sports press. I imagined a lot of exposure, a good project. I mean, what else could you ask? Popular, good, and cheap. It's easy to produce. And so we exchanged a number of emails, in which I kept insisting on my project, and he proposed another one. In fact, it was also considered from the beginning that was his project. So at that point, we were talking about mine. I mean, it was not mine, it was his. Both were his project and his project. So eventually, after a number of emails, he sent me one and said, listen, we have to talk. This is not going to work. By the way, if you ever had any friction in your sentimental life, you know what that's something that when you hear that, you can be frightened. We have to talk something very serious. And so he proposed me something, a competition. If he won, we were going to do his project. And if I won, we were going to do my project. And eventually, the competition was the project in itself. So, as it happens with all Netco's work, there was a text on the left explaining everything that I have just told. And then a number of different, let's say, abilities shown. This was the text. This was on the invitation card. I obviously won this one. And the others were each one of a different level of ability. Some were just a physical condition. Some were of direct intellectual or let's say all the kind of skills that they have different punctuation according to that. And here, obviously, he won that. He's twice my volume. And so this becomes project. Again, it was flirting with time, because it brought the before to the present. And it also dealt with power, because it made visible something that sometimes it remains invisible, and it's the power friction between the curator, the artist, institution, the gallery, depending on each project. But it's something that exists, it is there, but it's difficult to show and to talk. And eventually, I think that I won mathematically, but I never asked for nothing special. I mean, not to my project to be done. Going to a more recent project that I did, Wilfredo Prieto. Again, we made an exhibition together 2 years ago, and it was packed with these references to time. Okay, this is just a piece for you to know a bit of his work. His work is based on very simple ideas. It's the direct link of the most simple idea to its most simple formalization. So in this case, I chose this one also because it's a bit time linked in terms that we had to change the watermelon every 2 or 3 days because obviously it lost its properties. And, but in any case, most of the works, for example this, this was the work that gave its title to the exhibition, Tied to the Devil's Leg. And we would have loved this piece to be for every single day that the exhibition lasted for, and in the rooftop of the building. That was not possible, so it was done for 1 hour in the park. But it was not seen as a performance, because when public arrived, they already saw this image, and they left without the helicopter landing. That was very important. And again, was bringing time and work and expense to the exhibition as part of it. The exhibition was packed with this idea of time. For example, this is one for me was one of the most interesting pieces of the exhibition. It's called Holy Water. And it's exactly that. In his works, generally, there's a match of the label could read holy water, and it's made with holy water. I mean, there's a match of material, title, and the work itself. So we had to throw holy water every day because the air is quite dry and evaporates very quickly. And again, with this idea of time, but here there were many other things, like getting the holy water. We ran out of holy water, so we had to get more. And I have to say that at the beginning, I did not understand what was happening. I mean, why he insisted on using holy water. And when I saw the priest performing, because for me, I have no religious education, so in fact, it was the first time in my life I saw a priest performing this kind of act. I discovered that, in fact, the holy water is the first ready-made in history, because the priest doesn't ever touch the water. He even, in fact, we brought many liters, so it was in the trunk of the car. So we opened the trunk and we were going to unload it and say, no, you don't have to do so, it's fine. So he performed everything without ever touching the water. So the water was exactly the same before and after being blessed, but it became holy. So I mean, for me, it was really a revelation on how many part of the art operates. Huh? So again, and in the exhibition, it was plenty of objects that had a relation with time, like the water. This other that was a banana skin put over soap and over grease. So it was the most dangerous object that you could have in a museum for the visitors. Nothing happened. Or, I don't know if there's one more image of him. No. Okay. Or other ponds of lemonade and of Cuba Libre, of Roman Coke. But in his case, they're quite separate. He defines himself as being the most apolitical artist, which obviously makes the works extremely political. Again, talking about time, Iván Argote, an artist from Colombia living in Paris. This was a view of the exhibition, and in fact, it's a strange. Maybe there's something that happens when they arrive to us that they decide to include time, because he mostly works in video, very interesting videos depicting daily circumstances, things that happen very quickly in certain moments. And he has an obsession for birthdays, and there are plenty around. So what he proposed for us is to set a space of his exhibition space for people to celebrate their birthdays. So they have to register. The museum gave them some things, and so we made up publicity. They requested to participate. This is what they got, like basic things from us. The rest they had to bring. But again, it was a piece that it was filled with people and filled with during the time of the exhibition. The first day there were none. The last day we had like 40 photos of all the birthdays celebrated there. It's also interesting to think of the birthday as something special, because it's like a bit like the holy water. I mean, every day there's somebody's birthday. And finally, the last project that we have just finished very recently is Aernout Mik, and that, as you know, he works mostly in works that include film and architecture and the experience of space. This was how the exhibition looked in Madrid. But also, strange enough, he also thought of using time in the exhibition by including performers that they were fake public, that in fact they were reacting to the videos and acting like some of the people in the videos. They were like mimetic actions that look like them. We had two groups, one of elder people, the other of teenagers. The elder people was really old. The teenagers were really young. That was very interesting of seeing together. They were amateur actors, and it was very interesting to see them in the public and how and the change of rules that they proposed to the public. And again, it was rather unpredictable what was going to happen. Especially the very first day, because we never said the times where these performers were acting, of course. We just told the public that it may happen during the visit. And it was interesting both when they were performing, what happened, also when they were not performing, because you could see public looking at each other thinking that maybe the other is the performer. So that was also quite interesting. So, as a conclusion, I'm going back to the same idea of what happens when time is part of the exhibition, and when when it poses more questions to how we understand this institution of art, the ways that we exhibit, perceive, the way that works of art are produced and they are sold. And I was saying before, here, if you go to the first floor, you will see the many options that has defined, and eventually ending in the collection of a museum of a private collection. Oops. So again, this is what is. Thanks.
I'm just curious why you are putting this in particular in the context of institutional or
somewhat in the context of institutional critique, or the historicity of the institutional critique.
Because
I mean, none of these people are, I mean, none of the artists are actually, let's say, not that it's necessary, but they don't have an antagonistic relationship to the institution in particular, or to you. Or that is, the antagonistic relationship has been replaced by one which is much more playful, humorous, calculated. So,
because assuming that institutional critique is something that basically wants to discuss how symbolic and economic power is distributed in the art, and using the art as a big metaphor of the world, I think that these works, most of them, do that by making visible a system that is based on some assumed ideas of what the production of art is and the production of experience is, or by making visible the tensions that sometimes are generated, like Netco, for example. Netco for me is a very clear case of dealing with the power fight between the artist and the curator. That it has been not very well exposed and discussed, and I'm sure that you have experienced in your life. So that's why I'm thinking that bringing time into these projects, it's another level, very subtle, of generating a new way of generating an institutional critique. And because most of the works generate a situation again that would need a very well written certificate to have a sense as a work that can be collected or exhibited.
I think a number of positions that you mentioned are actually playing within a field that is allowed or permitted. I mean, that's maybe what I was saying. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but and you think that institutional critique does not work on allowed fields? That it goes?
No, I don't mean that. It's just this kind of. I mean, there's something calculated about being allowed to play in a permitted field, even if it's an expanded. But it's still a permitted field in which the rules are still expanded, but nevertheless the rules are there, and there's no, let's say, and it does not. It's conscious of its as it does not go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
What was Nedco's project?
What was Nedco's project? If your project was the football.
Doing a not so white cube. Do you know that?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And why didn't I want it? Because the first project seemed to be extremely good.
Vasif, is playing with sports authorized, or is that unauthorized? Artists are allowed to play with music, and they're allowed to play with fashion, they're allowed to play with film, but sport?
Yeah.
Sure not. It doesn't happen so often.
Well, in any case, I think that the difficult word in this is institutional critique.
Yeah.
I promised myself of not using it in public, but I felt that to explain this, it's really needed. But it's very difficult to explain, especially to a group of people that have not a lot of exposure to art, what institutional critique is. So I think that it's one of these words that should be forbidden. Those are the words that should not be allowed, because it generates so many contradictions that I think that it's terribly, maybe it could be used to explain history, but not contemporary. working?
So I think there's more, I mean, sports, because they're probably popular sports, yeah.
Well,
And soccer.
yeah, there are plenty of ways dealing with it, but there's when somebody says,
"Oh, we're doing an art music show," everybody goes, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And when you say, we're doing an art and film show or an art and fashion show, and then when you say we're doing an art and sport show, your colleagues always go, "Ugh." Like, you've gone the bridge too far. So even though, of course, there's the Zidane work, which I actually dislike a great deal, because I am a ex-football player and fan, and the Zidane film is, I think, misunderstood. It's overrated. And if there's one thing I dislike, it's when people who have never watched football then authorize themselves to write about the Zidane work when they've never been to a football game and don't know what it means. But really, when you say those words out loud, you grow. And I must say that when I was a curator in a house in an Olympic city, and the government of that country and city said to us, well, for the period of the Olympics, you can either get a great deal of money to do an art and sport show, or some subsidy just shut for 6 weeks. We shut for 6 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.